I pulled over and just cried because the abuse started here.
It's upsetting.
Yeah.
It's upsetting to come back and to see the prison still standing.
Don't cry. It's so good to see you.
It was hands down the rape club.
It was a dark graveyard for us.
They tried to break me here. You know, they tried to break us all, and they weren't successful.
We're your mothers, your grandmothers, your daughters, your sisters.
It's choking me up because it should have never happened. None of this should have never happened.
They gave him the name Dirty Dick Smith for a good reason. Is that what I was sentenced to?
They're all together. They're all in it together.
Tonight, we have the latest on a NewsNation exclusive. 5 women who were formerly incarcerated in California telling their story of surviving a federal prison so notorious for sexual abuse, it was called the Rape Club. They say they were assaulted by the officers who worked there, and when they tried to report the abuse, they were silenced. Some of them thrown into solitary confinement, others their release dates postponed, in an effort, they say, to cover up what was really happening. Well, the women say it has been a crushing week. Days ago, a federal jury deadlocked for a second time in the newest trial of a prison guard with the nickname Darrell Dirty Dick Smith. The jurors could not all agree Smith was guilty of 14 counts of sexual abuse. While 9 other former FCI Dublin officers, including the warden, have all either pled guilty or have been found guilty. Former inmates tell NewsNation the abuse from those in power was everywhere. In the cells, in the hallways, even the prison church wasn't safe. At the end of last year, the U.S. government did something unprecedented, reaching a nearly $116 million civil settlement paid out to more than 100 of these women. And in this exclusive, these survivors want you to know what happened to them behind federal walls.
This is Mark.
How many of you were sexually assaulted at FCI Dublin? What's going through your mind?
I'm sorry. It's embarrassing to tell people that what we went through is real.
One of the biggest cases of abuse ever at a U.S. prison happened here, and for the first time, we're hearing their stories. These women say at Federal Correctional Institution Dublin, from the guards to the warden, even the prison church wasn't safe. NewsNation spoke to Wendy Ponzo, who alleges that Chaplain James Theodore Highhouse abused her.
4 times. I was 140 pounds when all this occurred. I ate myself up to over 200 pounds. If I figured if I became ugly, nobody else would want me. Nobody else in the prison system would come at me, and that wasn't true. I still don't go to church at all. I don't pick up my Bible. I can't.
As of April, the chaplain who pled guilty to 4 counts of sexual abuse is one of 8 former FCI Dublin correctional officers charged in federal court for sexually abusing women behind bars. 5 pled guilty, including Chaplain Highhouse, sentenced to 84 months in prison. The warden at the top, Ray J. Garcia, was convicted by a jury and sentenced to 70 months in prison. Yvonne Palmore says she remembers the warden standing over her after she was beaten by a group of guards. And you woke up and you saw the warden doing what?
Standing over me, filming my body.
Your naked body?
Naked.
And what were the other inmates screaming at you?
He's filming your Miss P, Miss P. And then I happened to look up, and he's standing over me with this smirk on his face. And I woke up in the hospital, but I had bruises from head to toe, boot prints, actual boot prints on my body for months. So they hid me in the shoe.
What was the longest period of time that you were in solitary?
7.5 months.
And they told your family that you were dead?
I was dead.
Darlene Baker still can't sleep after what happened. In a federal lawsuit filed last June, she claims to have been sexually abused by a medical staff member at FCI Dublin. What happened?
I get a shot every 2 weeks for a pretty severe autoimmune disorder. And I went in to get my shot. And he said, oh, go on back to where the refrigerator is, into the back medical room. And I didn't know it, but he had then locked the front door, pushed me hard against the wall. And it was a violent type of episode, and I don't know, blacked out. And when I came back, when there was knocking on the door, and he had finally stopped, and my shirt and bra was up to my neck, and my pants were down.
She says she tried to report the assault and the retaliation began. Then the day came she was supposed to go home.
Your release was canceled and then extended for 8 months.
Yes.
She says phone calls, emails, and personal visits were cut off. She became determined to be the whistleblower who would bring this all down.
I have a legal background. I'm going to report what I'm seeing.
She did, sending meticulous documentation through another inmate's mail to her family, who sent it to Congresswoman Jackie Speer. Information that would later be critical in building evidence, though that medical staff member is not one of the 8 charged.
I do have really bad nightmares every single night, and I think it's because I know my offender is free.
Because he told you he would find you.
Yeah, and he's still out. There's a whole bunch of them like that.
Kendra Drysdale says she tried to report staff misconduct during a pat-down through what should have been a confidential message to the DOJ. Within an hour, she says she was called into a disciplinary hearing in the prison and was accused of lying.
What do you want to keep? And I'm like, oh my God, please don't take my phone. I talk to my daughter every single day.
So good to see you.
And she said, okay, so we're going to take her phone. And then she said, we're going to take your email. We're going to take your in-person visits. We're going to take your video visits. And then she said, what else can we take from her? And she said, well, let's take her out date.
Let's take her out date.
Let's take her release date.
The California Coalition for Women's Prisoners says Kendra was left in prison for several months past the date she was supposed to go home. The women say the fight continues. A federal jury deadlocked for a second time in the newest trial of a prison guard with the nickname Darrell Dirty Dick Smith. Aimee Chavira went to court to look him in the eye.
Is that what I was sentenced to? Suicide crosses your mind. Depression is a huge issue. How do you tell your family that you're in a federal prison and that the federal government's allowing this to happen?
We are the survivors.
These survivors say that day begins with coming back to where it happened, unbroken, and now you knowing what happened here.
NewsNation for us is very important, and for you guys wanting and willing to put this out there so the people in the world can know. We're very grateful.
We did it, though. We did it. Yeah. Our fight has just begun.
Well, Darrell Smith continues to proclaim his innocence, and before our investigation aired, we reached out to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, which said in part it, quote, strongly condemns all forms of sexual abusive behavior and takes seriously our duty to protect the individuals entrusted in our custody. Due to active litigation, we will decline to comment further. We do want to welcome in one of the survivors you just saw in that investigation, Darlene Baker. Darlene, it is so good to see you again. Thank you for joining us to talk more about this. And I know that you were in court for both of Darrell Dirty Dick Smith's trials. And as we just said, he continues to proclaim his innocence. What was it like for you and the other FCI Dublin survivors to get this result this week, a second deadlocked jury in his second trial?
I can honestly say it was entirely heartbreaking for all of us. Very heartbreaking. 2 times. We felt so bad for all the victims who testified and were courageous enough to come twice to the trials and share their intimate, most embarrassing, demeaning details. And out of all the 14 counts that were charged, the jury couldn't come to a guilty plea or a guilty decision on any of them. So it was heartbreaking.
You know, one court observer noting that some of the male jurors apparently were crying during those proceedings on Wednesday when they were unable to come to a consensus. What do you make of that?
Well, they were unable to poll the jurors. The jurors wanted to leave right away. So we didn't get any input about what they were thinking or some of their reasoning. But it seems pretty apparent, just like the other decision-making process, that there are factions on completely opposite sides. And 4 of the jurors crying, and they were mostly men in rendering that mistrial decision in front of the judge, I think speaks volumes that there is a lot of disagreement and a lot of heartache in not being able to reach a decision.
And there was a lack of DNA evidence here. What are your thoughts on that?
So most of the victims had testified about, horrible details involving Dirty Dick Smith. But what they all agreed is he was a very sophisticated actor. He did not make mistakes. He was an intelligent man. He told them, the women, when they begged him to leave them alone, to stop preying on them, he told them, when they said that they were going to report it, he said, "Go ahead. I'm an officer. You're an inmate. You're a felon. No one will believe you. There will never be any DNA evidence left." And he made sure of that. There was testimony about him masturbating in front of women, in front of the showers in his office, and all kinds of horrible details, but he never left any DNA. He was careful about that. He also said, "You'll never find any camera evidence because I know where there are no cameras." And there were very few cameras in this wing, and it was well known. He knew exactly where to commit his offenses. He was a very smart man. There was more evidence that came out at the end of the trial where he was able to accumulate 13 investment properties and 16 empty lots, and had done a bunch of transfers before he was actually arrested, like within a couple of days before he was arrested, so that he could preserve his estate.
Yeah, and Darlene, let me ask you about what the next step is, because a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office of Northern California is not commenting at this time on whether Smith will be retried for a third time. And technically, the government can do this, but there's financial cost and, of course, the emotional toll. I mean, help us grasp, what does it take for these women to take the stand again and not be unanimously believed again? And do you think that Smith should be tried a third time?
I'm a fighter. I've been fighting this battle along with so many of us for years now. So instinctively, I want to say, retry him. We'll find better evidence. We'll find more evidence. We'll find more witnesses, corroborating witnesses, more evidence that could put him away. But then I really think back to these poor victims when they were testifying, and none of them wanted to be there. And it was just heartbreaking to hear what they had to say. And for instance, a victim with initial S, she's engaged now to be married, and she's pregnant, and she's finally starting to move on with her life. And every time you start talking about these details, and with the cross-examination involved, it destroys you, and it just is hard to move on with that.
And it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful you are still talking and you're sharing your story as well. Darlene Baker, I wish we had more time. I wish you all the best. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.